Welcome to Whisper and Learn channel. In today's video, we'll dive into another engaging story to help you improve your English listening skills while enjoying a relaxing and stress-free experience. Each story is crafted to teach practical vocabulary, enhance your comprehension, and provide meaningful life lessons. So grab your headphones, relax, and let's begin.
The sun was setting over Willow Creek, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The air was warm with the scent of blooming wildflowers, a gentle breeze carrying the nostalgic whispers of summers long gone. Ellie Whitaker had spent her childhood in this small town, its streets etched with memories of simpler days. But tonight, standing on the porch of her family's old Victorian house, she felt the weight of a bittersweet homecoming. Ellie hadn't set foot in Willow Creek in over a decade. Life had pulled her away, first to college, then to a fast-paced career in New York City. Yet when her mother's unexpected passing left her the family home, Ellie knew it was time to return. The house needed tending, and so perhaps did the pieces of herself she'd left behind. As she gazed down the familiar main street, a wave of nostalgia swept over her. The coffee shop where she'd spent countless afternoons with friends was still there, its sign a little more weathered. The bookstore's windows glimmered with fairy lights, just as they had when she was a teenager. And there, at the end of the street, was the old high school, a place Ellie had both cherished and longed to escape. It was at that high school she had met Ryan Carter. Ryan had been the quintessential golden boy, captain of the football team, class president, and every parent's dream son-in-law. But to Ellie, he had simply been Ryan, the boy who made her laugh, who dreamed of becoming an architect, and who kissed her under the bleachers when no one was looking. Their love had been young and wild, a flame that burned bright but couldn't withstand the winds of time and distance. Ellie shook her head, dispelling the memories. She had come back to Willow Creek to rebuild, not to dwell on the past. Yet, as she walked to the grocery store the next morning, fate seemed to have other plans. The bell above the store door chimed as Ellie stepped inside, her basket dangling from one arm. She was scanning the shelves for coffee when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Ellie Whitaker? Is that really you?" Her heart skipped a beat as she turned to face the source. There he was, older but still unmistakably Ryan. His dark hair was shorter now, streaked with a hint of silver at the temples, and his smile, oh, that smile was just as she remembered. "Ryan," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's been a long time," he said, his eyes searching hers. "It has," she replied, feeling a strange mixture of warmth and nerves. "What are you doing here?" He chuckled. "Still living here. I run my own architecture firm now. What about you? I heard you moved to New York." Ellie nodded. "I did, but I'm back to take care of the house and a few things." For a moment, the air between them was charged with unspoken words, years of distance collapsing into a single glance. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "How about we catch up over coffee?" he asked, a note of hope in his voice. Ellie hesitated but found herself nodding. "Sure, I'd like that." The coffee shop hadn't changed much, its wooden booths and chalkboard menu comforting in their familiarity. Ellie and Ryan slid into a booth by the window, 2 cups of steaming coffee between them. At first, their conversation was tentative, filled with polite questions about work and family. But as the minutes turned into hours, the barriers between them crumbled. Ryan spoke about his love for architecture, how he'd stayed in Willow Creek to design homes that honored its charm. He described his passion for preserving the town's unique character, how each project felt like a small love letter to his roots. Ellie shared stories of her career in publishing, the highs and lows of city life, and the ache of losing her mother. She spoke of late nights editing manuscripts, the thrill of seeing a book come to life, and the loneliness that often crept in amid the bustling city streets. They laughed about their high school antics, from sneaking into the auditorium after hours to the time they organized a secret scavenger hunt around town. Each memory felt like a thread, weaving together the tapestry of who they had been. "Do you remember that summer we built the treehouse?" Ryan asked, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Ellie's laughter filled the small booth. "Of course I do. You insisted on making it 2 stories, even though we barely had enough wood for one. You were so stubborn." "And it still stood through every storm," he countered, grinning. "We made a good team." Ellie nodded, her smile softening. "We did." The conversation ebbed and flowed, their voices dropping into quiet tones as they delved into deeper topics. Ryan spoke of the challenges of staying in a small town, the moments of doubt and the unexpected joys. Ellie admitted how the city, for all its opportunities, had sometimes left her feeling untethered. As the hours passed, the world outside the coffee shop faded, leaving only the warmth of their shared space. The weight of time seemed to lift, leaving behind the simple joy of two people rediscovering each other. For a moment, Ellie studied Ryan's face. The lines around his eyes, the way his smile curved slightly more on one side. He had changed, and yet he was still the boy she had loved. And in that booth, with the scent of coffee and the sound of his voice, Ellie felt something she hadn't in years. Hope. Over the weeks that followed, Ellie and Ryan fell into an easy rhythm. They spent afternoons walking through the park, evenings reminiscing on her porch, and weekends restoring the old treehouse. The years apart had changed them, but some things remained the same. The way Ryan's laugh could light up a room, the way Ellie's eyes sparkled when she talked about books, and the unspoken connection that drew them together. But it wasn't always simple. Ellie found herself grappling with the uncertainties of returning to Willow Creek. The house was still a minefield of memories, each room reminding her of her mother's absence. Some nights, she'd sit alone in the quiet kitchen, staring at the faded wallpaper and wondering if she'd made the right choice. Other times, she'd be overwhelmed by the weight of old friendships rekindling alongside the simmering feelings for Ryan. Ryan, too, had his own struggles. Balancing the demands of his growing architecture firm with the emotional intensity of reconnecting with Ellie wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, times he wondered if she would leave again, if the history they shared was enough to sustain a future. One afternoon, as they worked on the treehouse, Ryan's younger sister, Clara, stopped by. Clara had always been fiercely protective of Ryan, and her warm but probing questions directed at Ellie hinted at a subtle skepticism. "So, Ellie," Clara said, her tone light but pointed, "what are your plans once the house is fixed up? Are you staying?" Ellie hesitated, caught off guard. I'm not sure yet," she admitted. "I'm still figuring things out." Clara smiled politely, but her words lingered in Ellie's mind long after she left. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ellie sat with Ryan on the creaky treehouse floor. The glow of string lights flickered around them, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. Do you think I'm running away again? Ellie asked suddenly, her voice barely audible. Ryan looked up from the sketches he'd been showing her. What makes you say that? Clara, and maybe me, Ellie admitted. I don't want to hurt you, Ryan, but I'm scared I'll mess this up. Ryan set the papers aside and took her hand. Ellie, you left before because you needed to, but you came back. That says more than anything. He paused, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We're not the same people we were back then. Maybe that's why this can work now. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she nodded. I don't want to run anymore. For the first time in years, Ellie allowed herself to fully feel the weight of the emotions she'd kept buried. And in that treehouse, surrounded by the memories of their past and the complexities of their present, Ellie and Ryan leaned into each other, ready to face whatever storms the future might bring. As the stars appeared one by one in the sky, they knew they were building something stronger than they had ever imagined. A love built not on fleeting passion, but on enduring connection and the courage to begin again. The summer passed in a blur of laughter, hard work, and quiet moments that spoke volumes. Together, Ellie and Ryan transformed Ellie's family home, breathing life into its faded walls. With each brushstroke and nail, they built not just a house, but the foundation of something much deeper, a shared hope for the future. The days were filled with activity. Mornings spent choosing paint colors and afternoons sanding floors and patching walls. Ellie found herself rediscovering the joy of creation, not just in her home, but in her growing bond with Ryan. Yet, even as the house took shape, there were unspoken fears lingering beneath their smiles. One afternoon, as they worked side by side in the kitchen, Ryan paused. Remember when we talked about rebuilding that tree house? He asked casually, though his tone hinted at something more. Ellie looked up from painting the cabinets, a smudge of blue on her cheek. Of course. Why? Because that's what this feels like to me, he said, his gaze steady. Like we're building something that's been waiting for us to come back. Her breath caught. Ryan always had a way of turning simple words into something profound. Before she could respond, he reached out to wipe the paint from her cheek, his touch lingering just a moment longer than necessary. The tension between them was electric, but Ellie quickly busied herself with her brush, her emotions too raw to confront. By autumn, the house was finally ready. The once quiet Victorian now glowed with warmth, its windows spilling golden light onto the porch. Ellie decided to host a small gathering for friends and neighbors to celebrate. She spent the morning baking pies and arranging flowers, while Ryan hung lights across the front yard, turning the space into something magical. As guests arrived, the house filled with laughter and chatter. Ellie's childhood friend Maggie pulled her aside. "You're glowing," Maggie teased, eyeing Ryan across the room. "You two look like something out of a Hallmark movie." Ellie laughed, brushing off the comment, but her cheeks warmed. It was true. Standing by Ryan's side felt natural, like they'd never been apart. As the evening wound down and the last of the guests departed, Ellie and Ryan found themselves alone on the porch. The cool autumn air wrapped around them, and the stars above seemed brighter than ever. Without a word, Ryan took her hand, leading her to the field behind the house. It was the same spot where, years ago, they had laid on a blanket, dreaming of forever. "You know," Ryan said, his voice low, "this feels a lot like that tree house, built with love and standing strong through every storm." Ellie turned to him, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and love. "And this time, I'm not going anywhere." For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of their journey, the years apart, the doubts, the rebuilding, settling over them. Then Ryan leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that spoke of promises made and kept. It wasn't hurried or fleeting, it was steady, as if anchoring them both to the present. As they pulled back, Ryan reached into his pocket. "I found this when I was helping clear out your attic," he said, holding up a small, weathered envelope. Ellie's name was scrawled across it in a familiar hand, her mother's. Ellie's hands trembled as she took it. "I thought I'd lost this," she whispered, her eyes misting. "Open it," Ryan encouraged. Inside was a letter her mother had written years ago, filled with reflections about life, love, and letting go. "Ellie," it read, "sometimes the hardest thing to do is trust yourself to be happy. Don't let fear keep you from the things that matter most." Tears streamed down Ellie's face as she folded the letter and clutched it to her chest. She always knew how to say exactly what I needed to hear, she murmured. Ryan's hand found hers. Maybe she was saving this moment for now, he said softly, because she knew you'd find your way back. In that field under the canopy of stars, Ellie felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Home wasn't just a place, it was a feeling, a connection, a promise of what could be. And as Ryan pulled her into his arms, she knew they weren't just rebuilding a house or reliving the past. They were building a future, together. Winter crept into Willow Creek with its soft whispers and frosted mornings, but the warmth inside Ellie's home never waned. The days following their gathering had been filled with quiet contentment as Ellie and Ryan slipped further into the rhythm of a life they hadn't known they could still share. Yet, life had one more surprise waiting for them. One snowy afternoon, as Ellie sorted through old boxes in the attic, she came across a photograph tucked inside a forgotten album. It was of her and Ryan, no older than 17, standing in front of the treehouse they'd built together. They were covered in sawdust and grinning ear to ear, the excitement of possibility lighting their faces. "Find something good?" Ryan's voice called from the ladder as he climbed up to join her. Ellie held up the photo. "Remember this?" He took it from her, his smile growing as he traced the image with his finger. "How could I forget? We were so sure we could take on the world back then." Ellie laughed softly. "Turns out we just needed to take it on together." Ryan set the photo down and took her hands in his. "Ellie, there's something I've been meaning to ask." Her heart skipped, her breath catching as she searched his face. "What is it?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a delicate ring, a simple band adorned with a small, radiant diamond. "I've had this for a while now," he admitted, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I was waiting for the right moment, but I think every moment with you feels right." Ellie's eyes filled with tears, her heart swelling with an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. "Ellie Whitaker," Ryan continued, his smile soft. "Will you marry me?" The attic seemed to fade around them, lives, leaving only the two of them and the unshakable bond they'd rediscovered. Ellie nodded, her voice trembling as she answered, "Yes, Ryan, 1,000 times yes." Their laughter and tears intertwined as Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing the promise of a lifetime shared. The photograph lay forgotten on the attic floor, a symbol of the journey that had brought them here. Months later, as spring returned to Willow Creek, Ellie and Ryan stood under the blooming magnolia tree in her backyard, surrounded by friends and family. The ceremony was simple, just as they'd wanted, with heartfelt vows that spoke of resilience, rediscovery, and the courage to embrace love once more. As they danced under strings of lights, the sound of music and laughter filling the air, Ellie rested her head on Ryan's shoulder, her heart full to the brim. "We did it," she whispered. Ryan kissed her forehead, his voice warm. "No, Ellie. We're just getting started." Under the stars that night, in the home they'd rebuilt and the love they'd reclaimed, Ellie and Ryan began their forever. The past had shaped them, but it was the promise of tomorrow that truly defined their story. Life may pull people apart, but love, real, enduring love, has a way of finding its way back. Second chances aren't always given, but when they are, they hold the power to transform hearts and rewrite destinies. For Ellie and Ryan, the journey wasn't just about rekindling a romance. It was about rediscovering themselves and the unbreakable bond they had always shared.
Thank you for listening to this story on Whisper and Learn channel. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable today. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that make learning English fun and effective. Let us know in the comments what you think of this story or what topics you'd like to hear next. See you in the next video. Happy learning!